I'm out of here, bro. Peace out.
In the city, and I think, there's already been so much time, effort put in by so many people that, aren't going to get credit for what they did to bring All-Star here. So, trying to make it the best All-Star the WNBA has ever had. I know we'll certainly do that, but also, it is certainly a cool honor for sure.
The sound is the first thing you notice. Not the squeak of sneakers on polished hardwood or the shouted instructions of coaches, but the snap of the net. It's a clean, sharp, unmistakable sound, the sonic signature of a perfect shot. In a brief 16-second clip buried in the social media aftermath of a Team USA women's basketball practice in North Carolina, that sound rings out twice. The source, Caitlin Clark, launching a basketball with a fluidity and ease that seemed, for much of the past season, to have been misplaced. The clip is unremarkable on its surface. A superstar athlete taking a jump shot in an empty gym. Yet, for those who endure the grueling, fractious spectacle of her WNBA rookie year, it feels like a revelation. This isn't the weary, ground-bound version of Clark we saw last summer, heaving contested threes with a visibly altered mechanics. This is the echo of Iowa, the quick, high release, the effortless elevation, the confident follow-through. The commentator in the clip voices what the eye instinctively sees. Caitlin's shot looked like it's back, y'all. This moment, and the subtle yet profound shift in Clark's demeanor throughout her first Team USA camp, is more than a sports story. It is the opening scene of a critical second act, one that will test not only Clark's legendary resilience, but the WNBA's capacity to steward its own explosive, contentious, and unprecedented moment in the cultural sun. The footage from North Carolina is a silent prologue, hinting at a player who has used a few precious months to reset, rebuild, and remember who she was before a league tried, both institutionally and physically, to break her in. And in doing so, it casts a harsh, revealing light on the choices, tensions, and paradoxes that now define the world of professional women's basketball. To understand the significance of Clark's apparent reset, one must first revisit the particular kind of crucible her rookie season became. She entered the league not merely as a talented prospect, but as a cultural avalanche. She shattered NCAA scoring records.
You seen your billboard that's going up on the JW?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. Yeah, it's pretty solid. Anytime you get on the JW in Indianapolis, that's a big deal. Good, thanks.
What do you feel like is a positive change?
A positive what? Sorry. Straight. I think just adversity in itself. Nobody said this season was going to be perfect for us. There's always going to be ups and downs. And, I think as we get moving here and get to All-Star, then get through All-Star, these are the moments that we're going to look back on and hopefully be able to, give a lot of credit to for certain situations that we were put in, for, injuries or, coach it not being here for a couple games too. Everybody's been through a little bit of adversity here. So, I think just giving our group credit for being able to stick together and, know that whatever's in our locker room is really all we need to go out there and win. And I'm honestly just really proud of our group every single day.
Captivated national television audiences and dragged women's basketball into the center of the American sports conversation with a force not seen since the heyday of the UConn-Tennessee rivalry or the launch of the WNBA itself. Her arrival promised a rising tide, swelling attendance, skyrocketing ratings, unprecedented sponsorship interest. The Indiana Fever, who secured the No. 1 pick, were handed a franchise-altering talent and a blinding, unforgiving spotlight. What followed was a season of profound dissonance. On one hand, the Clark effect was undeniably real. The Fever played in front of sold-out arenas across the country. Television ratings for Fever games and the league overall shattered records. The WNBA regular season saw a 48% increase in viewership. Jerseys flew off shelves. Every narrative, positive or negative, orbited her presence. On the other hand, Clark herself often seemed like a stranger in her own highlight reel. The transcendent shooter from Iowa, known for her audacious range and video game statistics, labored. She led the league in turnovers, a common rookie plight amplified by defensive schemes designed entirely to stop her. She shot a lower percentage from three than in college. The iconic logo threes became less a statement and more a struggle. The physical toll was stark and televised. Clark absorbed a level of contact that frequently crossed the line from competitive to dangerous hip checks on cuts, body checks off the ball, hard fouls on drives that often went uncalled as flagrants. The league's officiating, seemingly unsure how to manage the heightened physicality aimed at its new star, was inconsistent at best, negligent at worst. The message from veteran players was clear. The prodigy would earn her stripes through punishment. Clark played more minutes than any other player in the league, shouldering an astronomical usage rate for a team trying to find its footing. She looked, quite often, exhausted. Beneath the physical grind lay a more insidious fatigue. The mental and emotional load of being Caitlin Clark in 2024. Every game was a referendum. Every comment from a veteran player about paying dues or respecting the league sparked weeks of toxic debate. Her identity, white, heterosexual, from a heartland state, made her a flashpoint in endless, reductive culture wars about race, sexuality, and marketability that she never asked to lead. The basketball court, which had always been her sanctuary, became a battleground where the sport itself was often the third most important story, behind the controversy and the commentary. This was the player who arrived at Team USA camp, a Rookie of the Year award winner, an all-star, a playoff participant, but also an athlete bearing the deep wear and tear of a trial by fire. And then, something changed. The footage shows it. In media sessions, her answers are polished but relaxed. Asked about the season's challenges, she focuses on basketball adversity, injuries, coaching absences, lineup adjustments. I think just giving our group credit for being able to stick together, she says, a masterclass in deflection. Noticeably absent is any engagement with the external noise, the media circus, the cultural fray. This is not the overwhelmed rookie. This is a professional who has completed a crash course in media navigation. The burden is still there, but she has learned to carry it differently. Then there is the shot, the most technical and perhaps most telling aspect of her reset. A little discussed fact of Clark's pre-WNBA preparation was her intentional effort to add significant muscle mass. The rationale was sound, to withstand the league's renowned physicality. But the human body is a complex system of levers and rhythms. The added bulk, while perhaps helping her absorb contact, subtly altered the kinetic chain of her shooting motion. Her legendary quick release slowed by fractions of a second. The muscle memory of thousands of shots from Iowa distances became slightly out of sync. The result was a shot that often looked forced, a bit flat, less fluid. In the Team USA clips, that muscle memory appears restored. She is not fighting her own physiology. The release is quick and high, the arc pristine. The commentator notes she isn't even jumping with full force, it's pure, efficient form. This suggests a deliberate and successful recalibration over the offseason. She hasn't shed the strength, but she has likely refined her conditioning, retrained her neuromuscular pathways, and found a new equilibrium where power and finesse coexist. It is the work of a craftsman returning to her tools. When asked about her health, she offers the athlete's mantra, day to day. But for Clark, day to day isn't a cliche, it's an admission. It acknowledges the cumulative toll of that brutal rookie year and signals a new, smarter approach to sustainability. It is the language of a player planning for a decade-long career, not just surviving the next game. While Clark quietly worked on her game in North Carolina, another story unfolded online, offering a stark parallel narrative about the WNBA's present moment. The league's official social media accounts buzzed with content from the Team USA camp. There were highlights of Angel Reese's defensive intensity, clips of Chelsea Gray's surgical passing, and montages celebrating the veteran core. Conspicuously underplayed was Caitlin Clark. The player most responsible for the traffic on those very social media channels was relegated to a few seconds in a group montage. No dedicated highlight package, no feature on her return. To the casual observer, this might seem like trivial social media gossip. But in the modern sports economy, digital strategy is brand strategy. It is how leagues communicate priorities, build narratives, and anoint stars. The WNBA's apparent hesitation to feature Clark centrally is a symptom of a deep-seated institutional paradox. The league is experiencing a gold rush largely mined from a single vein, yet it seems deeply conflicted about how to manage the minor. This conflict stems from a legitimate, though fraught, tension. The WNBA is a league with a rich history, filled with legendary players who built it through decades of toil, often in obscurity and for meager pay. Its identity is deeply rooted in themes of community, social justice, and collective struggle. Along comes Caitlin Clark, who, through a combination of generational talent, a perfect storm of NIL and media exposure, and her specific demographic profile, taps into a mainstream, often traditionally male, sports audience that had previously largely ignored the league. Her fandom includes people who don't know the history, who buy her jersey, but no one else's, who tune in for her and then change the channel. For some within the league's ecosystem, players, coaches, executives, and longtime fans, this feels like an annexation. It can spark resentment, a protective instinct over the league's culture, and a desire to assert that Clark is merely a part of the tapestry, not the whole tapestry. The league's social media strategy, which often seems to practice a form of equity marketing, can feel like an attempt to placate this sentiment, to prove it is not playing favorites. The result, however, can appear to the outside world as a baffling failure to capitalize on its own heat. It is the equivalent of the NBA in the 1,980 seconds downplaying Magic and Bird to feature other all-stars equally. It misunderstands how star-driven sports economies grow. This brings us to the other name that pierced the mainstream in the reference commentary, Sophie Cunningham. The clip notes that the WNBA's own account posted a video celebrating Cunningham as the lone league player on a list of the year's most Googled athletes, ranking 8th ahead of global superstars in other sports. The commentator makes the provocative claim that Cunningham is, by this metric and her social media engagement, the league's second biggest star. Cunningham is an excellent player, a tough physical wing for the Phoenix Mercury, known for her gritty play and no-nonsense attitude. But she is not, by traditional basketball metrics, a top 5 superstar. Her prominence in search data is a fascinating case study. It is driven not by MVP caliber play alone, but by her embodiment of a specific role, the antagonist to the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Her physical, confrontational style of play against Clark, most notably in a game where she body-checked Clark to the floor, made her a central figure in the season's narrative. To Clark's millions of new fans, she became a villain. To segments of the league's existing base, she became a hero, a symbol of the old guard enforcing its will. Cunningham's stardom is thus a derivative star, a reflection of Clark's gravitational pull. It is proof of Clark's impact, not a counter-argument to it. The intense Google searches for Cunningham are people seeking the foil, the controversy, the other side of the story that Clark is writing. This is not to diminish Cunningham's talent or persona, but to clarify the dynamic. The WNBA finds itself with two players who command disproportionate mainstream attention, one as the transcendent protagonist, the other as her most visible on-court antagonist. This is classic sports narrative fuel, the kind that built the NBA's rivalries. Yet, the league's approach often seems to want to separate the two stories, to present Cunningham's popularity as entirely distinct, rather than recognizing it as part of a synergistic, if tense, ecosystem that Clark's presence created. The Team USA footage also highlights an absence, one that speaks volumes about the pressures orbiting Clark's world, the low profile of Stephanie White. White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever and an assistant for this Team USA squad, was a ubiquitous media presence upon her hiring last season. She gave interviews, outlined her vision, and embraced the challenge of building around a generational talent. During the season, she was a constant, often frustrated presence on the sidelines, navigating the team's rocky start and managing the circus. At Team USA camp, she has been virtually invisible. No media scrums, no featured interviews, a ghost in the background of practice clips. This retreat from the spotlight is likely a deliberate and intelligent strategy. The experience of coaching Caitlin Clark in year one is a unique pressure cooker. Every lineup decision, every offensive set, every public comment is dissected by millions. The scrutiny is unrelenting. For White, using the Team USA experience as a professional development retreat to learn from Dawn Staley and observe in a lower stakes environment is shrewd. But her silence also underscores the immense weight of the task awaiting her in Indianapolis. Last season, the Fever's offense often devolved into Caitlin Clark, figure it out. The spacing was poor, the movement off the ball inconsistent, and the reliance on Clark to create something from nothing was overwhelming. A critical question for year two is whether White and her staff can design an offensive system that maximizes Clark's unique skills, her passing vision, her off-ball movement, her gravity, while making the game easier for her. It means installing sets that get her cleaner looks, developing secondary ball handlers to relieve pressure, and empowering players like Aaliyah, Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell to punish teams that overcommit to Clark. The Team USA environment offers a glimpse of what that could look like. Surrounded by elite veterans like Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Diana Taurasi, Clark would not be the sole focus. She could play more off the ball, exploit closeouts, and use her passing in a more flowing, less forced context. The footage of her hitting catch-and-shoot jumpers with ease is a preview of a more sustainable, and likely more deadly, version of her professional game. The challenge for White is to transplant some of that ecosystem to Indiana. The quiet narrative of Caitlin Clark's summer reset ultimately points toward a seismic upcoming WNBA season. This is no longer just about a rookie's adjustment. It is about the trajectory of an entire league. The WNBA stands at a crossroads unprecedented in its 28-year history. Path 1. Integration and ascent. This path requires the league to fully and unapologetically embrace a star-driven model while skillfully integrating that star into its established identity. It means marketing courage. The league and its broadcast partners must feature Clark prominently and creatively, leveraging her appeal to introduce new fans to the broader constellation of incredible talent. Aja Wilson's dominance, Breanna Stewart's versatility, Arike Ogunbowale's shot-making. The rising tide metaphor only works if you acknowledge what's causing the tide. Basketball evolution. The Fever must build a competent, cohesive system around Clark. Officials must consistently protect all players, including stars, from non-basketball physicality, legitimizing the skill of the game. The welcome to the league hazing period must end for the good of the product. Narrative maturity. The players, media, and fans must collectively work to center basketball. The conversations about race, popularity, and dues are important, but they cannot be the primary lens through which every game and interaction is viewed. The sport itself deserves to be the main character. If this path is followed, and Clark returns with her shot restored and her game refined, the results could be explosive. We could see an MVP caliber season, a Fever team making a deep playoff run, and ratings that dwarf the already record numbers of 2024. The financial windfall from media rights, sponsorships, and attendance would benefit every team and player, raising salaries and investment across the board. Clark and Cunningham, as protagonist and antagonist, could fuel a rivalry that captivates casual fans. The league would secure its place in the mainstream sports landscape for a generation. Path 2. Dilution and stagnation. This is the path of continued internal conflict and mismanagement. It is marked by reactive marketing, a continued reluctance to lean into Clark's stardom for fear of backlash, leading to diluted messaging and a missed opportunity to convert her moment into lasting fan engagement. Systemic failure. The Fever failed to build a competent roster or system, leaving Clark to labor in isolation again. The league office continues to allow inconsistent, overly physical officiating, risking player safety and frustrating fans. Cultural entrenchment. The narrative remains mired in toxic off-court debates that alienate portions of both the new and old fan bases. The sport becomes a political and cultural proxy war, exhausting players and driving viewers away. This path leads to wasted momentum. Clark's prime years could be spent in frustrating team contexts, limiting her ability to truly shine. New fans, attracted by the promise of excitement and elite skill, may become disillusioned by a product that feels chaotic, poorly marketed, and resistant to their interest. The historic financial gains could plateau. The footage from Team USA is a beacon pointing toward Path 1. It shows a player doing the hard, quiet work of reclamation. It shows a shot rediscovered, a demeanor hardened yet calmer, a professional embracing the next level. Clark is holding up her end of the bargain. The question that will define the future of the WNBA is whether the league, its executives, its coaches, its players, its officials can meet her moment with the wisdom, courage, and foresight it demands. The 16-second clip is more than a practice highlight. It is a promise and a warning, a promise of the breathtaking basketball that is possible when Caitlin Clark is right, and a warning that such brilliance is not inevitable. It must be nurtured, protected, and celebrated by a league finally ready to steward its own destiny. The reset has begun. The world is watching.